Welcome to season 2 of Bring It to the Table.
Hello and welcome back to an hopefully exciting episode of Bring It to the Table.
Yep.
So hopefully if you watched part 1, you're going to be intrigued about what we have to bring to part 2. So my name is b.i.t.t.t and this is my co-host
Manuela.
And we are going to, bring some questions that some people have asked about forgiveness and hopefully bring stories, our own take. Well, we definitely have to bring our own take because that's what the whole program's all about.
Yeah.
However, you're going to fire us away with all the questions that people have.
Yeah, so this first question that we're bringing to the table, it says, this is a topic that my husband and I disagree on. He believes that forgiveness means you never speak of it again, but if you've been forgiven for something and you continue with the same behavior, then you aren't sincere in your repentance or your humility in the situation. Sometimes you have to forgive people and let them go, and he does not understand that. He thinks forgiveness means I keep forgiving for the same things over and over again, and I totally disagree.
First of all, we don't want to bring any division to anybody, but thank you for the question that they've asked. I guess my take on it, I think we've probably tackled it already from the last episode in relation to just keep forgiving. I think it's like once you're forgiven, next thing is like discernment and wisdom, because you don't want to get yourself into the same situation that you was in before. We've already tackled about forgive and forget.
Yeah.
But you remember about what's actually happened and you use the wisdom and discernment to think, okay, you don't want to put yourself in the same position for the same thing to happen so that you actually have to forgive again. So look, you are forgiven and you have released it, but then I guess the next part about it is wisdom and discernment, and you also have to look at the individual that is doing those things to you. Should they even be part of your circle anymore? You know, should they, do you need to separate yourself from them, or do you need to, obviously sit them down and have a discussion about, look, you can't allow the same things to keep happening to you because it's bringing you down, and that's not what the enemy wants. So
no,
very long question, but
I think that they're both right. Actually, both husband and wife are both right. They're saying the same thing, but sort of in a different way. So, and just to confirm what you've said as well, is in relation to forgiveness, yes, it does mean that you have to continuously forgive. And that's actually biblical. I think it's Matthew 18:22 or 22:18, I can't remember. But basically, we'll put it up. Basically, where someone comes to Jesus and says, how many times should I forgive? And the answer is 70 times 7. So, in other words, the command is that you do continue to forgive. It doesn't, however, mean that you have to allow yourself to be subjected to the same behavior over and over again. Generally, there are things that you can do in order to have that behavior changed. There might be particular boundaries that you have to put up in relation to that person. But on the issue of actual forgiveness, yes, you would have to continuously keep forgiving. That the number of times that you forgive basically doesn't run out. But then at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily believe that somebody has repented when they haven't, or believe that actually somebody is sincere in their apology. But I think this is like what we said during part 1, actually. I know that I've said it on Raw Talk, is that the person's response to the situation or to the offence that they have committed should not be the thing that determines whether you forgive. Because I think what's happening here and what people are actually getting incorrect is you are relating the act of forgiveness to the response that you get from the person that's caused the offence. Actually, the act of forgiveness is a choice, and it's a command that comes from God.
Yeah. And Jesus, in his prayer, when the disciples said, "Teach us how to pray," key point was, forgive those who trespass against us. You know? And following that, lead us not into evil. So if we don't forgive, then we've seen that, I guess the Bible has pinpointed that, it will lead us into temptation or doing some other things that are, against God's will. So yeah,
and I think I know this isn't part of the question, but I think that's really key to really home in on that point actually, that unforgiveness, in my view, does actually lead to evil. Because if you are harboring unforgiveness in your heart, you're actually harboring unforgiveness in your thoughts. And actually what the Lord has revealed to me, through a dream, might I add, he has actually revealed to me that when people are holding contempt for you in any way in their hearts, they are actually being used as a puppet for the enemy. And it actually enables the enemy to actually start throwing his fiery darts against you. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to hit you, especially if you're one that is prayed up and somebody that is one that has faith, because the Lord has actually shown me that actually the faith that you have will actually protect you from the fiery darts of the enemy. But the fiery darts that the enemy actually has in the first place actually comes from an individual's negativity and hostility and animosity towards you. So essentially we're being used as puppets.
Also, I'd like to point out, I feel like if you don't forgive, it just brings sleepless nights. I like to sleep.
No, you're right. And other people have actually shared that they can't sleep.
I like to not forgive. I just feel it's just working in your brain and working in your spirit just overnight, and you're just tossing and turning around in the bed, and you know. And
I've heard people give testimony to just that, the way that they're actually feeling when they are in when they're in unforgiveness. They don't have rest. Who wants to live like that?
Your spirit's troubled, you know, but then that can only be just the conviction of the Holy Spirit on you to. You need to forgive. You need to forgive. You need to release. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in that stuck in the mud for a very long time. So yeah.
Okay, so we have another question, which I'm going to ask you to answer. It's a nice short question. So this question is: can I forgive a person that killed my father or relative?
Why couldn't you answer this question? No, look, I mean, the answer is yes, but you know when we just say yes and it's like yes and then get it over and done with. No, look, obviously this is a highly sensitive topic, you know, dealing with death. Look, I haven't had anybody that's been killed, relative, but I think the closest that I can actually compare it is when a family bereavement. So I'm not like personally okay to share the story. So when my oldest brother passed away, that really hurt me. You know, I didn't. It was a lot of pain and there was a lot of sorrow, and because he was there and then he wasn't there, you know, and I couldn't understand why. And you always searching these answers, and from that, I said things that upon myself that didn't allow me to, walk forward in life. So I guess one of the, things that I did say was like, one, I'll never cry at a funeral or I'll never cry for someone's death, and all of those things meant that I was holding on to the bereavement of my brother and the bereavement of other people. So I was unable to move forward. So I guess that death just killed me inside. So not being able to, forgive that, look, death is, a part of, I don't want to say forgive death is a part of life, but the fact that, look, my brother's passed away and sin occurs and these things actually happen. Because I wasn't able to kind of forgive that moment, it troubled me for many years. So, for those people who might have been in that situation where someone has, killed their family relative, like in terms of like cold-blooded murder, I would just want to encourage you to say yes, that you should forgive. Because you don't want the enemy to have a hold of you, and you want to be able to release that emotion of, not, I guess, seeing that person anymore, that person is not there, and, just releasing that stuff to God. So that's my take on that question.
Yeah, and I just think the thing to remember is again, I think that there's a misconception in relation to what forgiveness actually is. And I think that once we can grab hold of the fact that how you feel actually should not be really linked to the command that God has given you, then I think that forgiveness will actually be easier, because the word forgiveness doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you are actually saying that what they'd done was all right and that it was acceptable. That's not what you're saying. All you're saying really is you're saying, I'm releasing you from my judgment to the judgment of God, because it's best that we have one judge that knows everything, as opposed to a judge ourselves that don't know everything. So again, if we're talking about a murderer, if we're talking about somebody that has not that has taken something from you, such as a relative, look, the act was not good, the act is bad, and remembering that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, I'm not taking away the responsibility at all from that person. But what I am saying is that we're going to leave it to God to judge. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have any hurt. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have any pain. And it may mean that for a period of time, you may not need to be around that person just for a period of time, because it's bringing up too much hurt and it's bringing up too much pain in relation to the situation. But what you are saying is you're saying, God, I'm going to release this person from my judgment. So therefore, the transaction is not between me and the killer of my relative, but the transaction is between me and you, God, because I'm going to release them into your own judgment.
Yeah. I mean, no, you're not agreeing to what they're doing, but I think you've already touched on that sin plus sin equals more sin. So I guess imagine if you decided to take the vengeance of getting the life back of whoever it may be.
Yeah.
Then when does it stop?
Yeah.
Because then there's no one on this earth anymore, and that's why we, I guess, encourage to forgive. Not that you're just forgiving to release it. You're not approving of the act.
No, not at all.
You're just releasing your own judgment and your own vengeance, upon God. And, we, I guess, want, the things that are around you as well to be okay, because that's just how the enemy just works. Yeah. It starts with one, and there's a snowball effect on somebody else, and then other people are affected within your family or your friendship groups, so many more people. Yeah.
And we're not saying, so basically, I guess we're saying is that you would forgive, the advice really and the command from God really is that we should be forgiving for everything, not something, but literally for everything. There aren't things that you don't forgive, and there's some things that you do. It's literally for everything. But just recognize, please, that what you're actually doing is you're actually obeying God. You're releasing them from your judgment, because you agree with the word of God that says that actually God is the judge and he's the one that judges all things. That's where you're coming into an agreement. Don't think that you are betraying the person that has passed away at all. But what you're saying is, God, I'm releasing this person unto you, and I want to be free from the burden of this unforgiveness. Because as Jermaine has already shared, the truth is that by walking and having that unforgiveness, you're actually not doing the other person any harm. You're actually doing yourself harm. Okay, so another question that we've got, which essentially we may have just answered this anyway, but the question is, how do you forgive when the person who has hurt you won't even acknowledge that they have done so and pretend it never happened? So basically, the person that's hurt you, they're pretending it's never happened, and they're not even acknowledging the pain that they have caused you. How do you forgive that person?
I mean, you apply the same things that we've already applied right now.
Yeah.
You still forgive.
Yeah.
You still forgive no matter what. Because for the very reasons that we've already explained about, not wanting to take vengeance on your own hand, and not wanting to do something that is sinful. So, I guess we are, again, probably be repeating ourselves, but I guess probably the thing that we're maybe wanting to focus on is the person who doesn't even know that they're actually done it. Look, there might be different ways that you can actually take it. I mean, there is the option of, look, you have forgiven and you don't, I guess, talk too much about the whole situation, or you forgive and take the opportunity to speak to the person and just let them know, like, look, this is how it's made me feel, what you've actually done, because it could be a very good opportunity to also say, or for that person, they don't know that they're doing this and they might do it to somebody else, and you have that opportunity to allow that thing to stop happening to somebody else. Obviously being very wise and discerning in relation to the whole situation. Like, I can't say this is a lot of these things. I do believe as well is, okay, you're forgiven, but have that conversation with God as what is the next steps that you need to take.
Exactly what you need to do.
What do you need to do?
But I think the thing that I'll probably just keep repeating actually to remember is that the transaction of forgiveness actually isn't between you and the other person, but it's something that you give to the other person, but essentially it's not tit for tat. They don't actually have to give anything back to you. They don't have to say sorry. They don't have to acknowledge that they've done anything wrong in the first place. What you're doing as a believer per se is actually you're saying, God, I'm going to take your command and I'm actually going to agree to forgive them. Again, this word forgive, what is it? I think that's what it is. If we just take this word at face value without actually opening it up and seeing what it actually means, that's when I think we make an error in relation to our forgiveness. We have to actually open up the word and say, what is this word that begins with F and ends in E, has got a V in the middle? What are we actually doing? And what I'm saying to you is that forgive actually means to release that person from your judgment. It means that you will no longer be judging them, but essentially what you will do and what you can do is that you can release them to God. So the person may pretend that nothing happened, but what it is you know that something's happened, and you want to know somebody else that knows that something's happened. God knows that something's happened. So by all means, release them to God and allow him to seek justice and righteousness, because that's what he does.
I feel like for a lot of people, it's not enough that God just knows. Like, for people, they want the whole world to know, and they want, it's a retribution. I don't know if it's the right word, but they want something to happen to that person.
And I think the thing is, and this is the thing that's difficult, and I think that, look, this is where I guess we can separate ourselves from the world. Okay, we take our instruction from God. God is trying to single out a people that have a heart for him and a people that do what he says. And the truth is, we have so many examples in the Bible of individuals that acted in forgiveness. Example number one, you have Moses, who did forgive Miriam and Aaron as they were speaking not well in relation to him and even in relation to God. You also have King David, who forgave Saul, who persecuted him for years and was trying to kill him, but he was able to forgive. You also have Stephen, who, as he was being stoned to death, can you believe this? Because I'm saying he's a better man than me. As he was being stoned to death, he actually forgave the people that were stoning him. And then we have the ultimate, literally the ultimate example, which is Jesus Christ. And as he was being beaten and whipped, and as he was crucified to death, essentially he said, forgive them, Father, for they not know what they are doing. So these are examples of forgiveness in very extreme situations. And essentially what they're doing is they are releasing the people from their own judgment, and they are, even in some cases, in these cases, they're actually allowing them to continue to walk in a blessing by actually blessing them. And this is what we're called to do. So although our flesh might want to scream out and shout out and say, slap for what you've done, we need to say, no, we're going to take the example that God has actually given to us.
Yeah, and just thinking about, what God has actually said, well, in relation to Christians, is that, we are going to be persecuted, and there are going to be unkind things that do actually happen to us because we champion his name, and we love him, we want to do things that please him, and forgiveness is what pleases him as well, and just I guess it's just recognizing how much power there is in forgiveness, not only just for yourself, but also in the spiritual atmosphere as well, that is unseen to our eyes, that we could kind of, change the course of time. I mean, God is time, so we could change what's actually happening, and we could destroy the works of the enemy by just, saying that word, but not just saying it with lip service, but actually saying it in our heart and believing it in our heart as well.
And
so,
I was going to say, just on the tail of that, pray for your enemies. Pray for those that have caused you offence. It might be difficult, but I thought that might actually bring some sort of resolution within your heart. And the good thing is that you can have the help of God, through His Holy Spirit to help you get to that place where you can actually forgive.
Yeah, that's true.
The next question is, which is a bit of a personal one. Have you ever had a time where you have been able to fully forgive a deep hurt, and what did the freedom change in you?
Now you're going right into the treasure box, because forgive and forget, and I forgot.
There you go. You can't answer that one. He's forgotten it. There you go.
I've probably, touched on, the previous example that I had before. There's probably been another example, from in my childhood, and I guess it's hard to kind of say a story without, wanting to mention people's names and trying to protect other people's names. But look, it happened, and what's the question? Is it what happened after it happened?
How did you feel? How did the freedom change you?
I feel like it changed in terms of, relationships, relationships improved and became better, because, like you said, there is that release and there's that judgment, that's probably number one. Number two, I definitely think it's probably one thing that's definitely apparent in the Black community or the Caribbean community, where we don't really talk about the things that really hurt us a lot. And so being able to, speak about those things openly and with, the people that, were caught up within it, provided the opportunity to, let's say, clear the air, clear the air and to get to a place where not only you're walking in freedom, but also the other person is walking in freedom as well. And also showing how that is an opportunity to point people towards God.
Yeah, and I think just on the back of that, I think that sometimes when you forgive, and it isn't all the time, but sometimes when you forgive, it can actually lead to reconciliation, and it can actually lead to a better relationship. Because if you don't forgive, the alternative is that there could be a grudge that's there and something that stands between you and the person that has done a wrong to you. But if you actually forgive them, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you can actually start again and say, look, I get that, that was wrong, and now we're going to move forward. You actually have the ability to move forward. But I think that when you've got unforgiveness in your heart, I think that it is very hard to walk forward. And I think that in life, God actually wants us to walk forward and not to walk backwards. Yeah. So I think that's, in my experience, there has been a freedom, and like what you shared before, a peace, so that actually I'm able to sleep a lot more. Because I think that when you're tensed up and you've got all of these grudges and stuff, that it can actually affect your life. It can affect your face, not looking happy and stuff, and obviously affect your sleep. And I believe it can actually affect your health also, because you're just not clear. You've just got all of this inside of you. So I think that it actually helps when you actually release. So in answer to your question, yes, there has been a time when I've been fully able to forgive a deep hurt. But again, that is because of my understanding as to what God does, and in a sense of what God actually requires, even in terms of forgiveness, because I don't relate the hurt to my ability to forgive. So it doesn't mean that I've necessarily been completely healed. So basically, my own inner healing, in other words, let me rephrase that, my choice to forgive is not dependent on the stage of my inner healing, basically. So I'm going to say that again. So basically, my choice to forgive is not dependent on the state of my inner healing. God will heal, and that may take time, etc. I may have a wound, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to forgive a person, because that's, again, it's between me and God, and something that I'm saying that I'm willing to do. And another thing to remember, and so behind every evil deed is a backstory. And let me just say that what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying that behind every evil deed is an excuse. I'm saying that there's a backstory, and that God actually understands everything. So I'm going to leave it to Him to judge.
Yeah. Just forgive. No. Look, in relation to that question, just the last point I probably want to make on it is that, look, when it comes to her, none of this would have been able to happen without revelation from God, without the power of God, without the Holy Spirit being the comforter and being able to speak truth and to speak light into the situation and to also bring peace. It's great if you have, I guess, people that's around you that's able to, I guess, help you look back at the story that you actually speak about and just say, okay, this is what happened, okay, could it come from this? Could it come from that? What is the background story behind the entire situation? It's always good. I mean, I know that you said it's not good to step back. I guess my opinion in that is that you're stepping back to move forward. It's like just going back into retracing your steps and just retracing what actually happened. So that was just my final take. But if you didn't understand more, always check out Real Talk with Mamola about her teaching of forgiveness. Or bring it to the table.
Yeah. Okay, so next question is, at what point is reconciliation forgiveness? And do you always have to reconcile with people you've forgiven? And just to let you know that these are not questions that we have come up with ourselves. These are questions that Bring It to the Table viewers, followers and supporters have actually messaged us. They've emailed us. And so we're just bringing these questions to the table. So again, at what point is reconciliation forgiveness? And do you always have to reconcile with people you've forgiven?
So is that reconciliation with...
Like the person?
With the person?
Yeah.
Could you just repeat the first part?
At what point is reconciliation forgiveness?
Well, reconciliation is not part of forgiveness.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah,
no.
It's more about releasing the judgment into God's hands and saying, God, let your will be done, not my will.
Yeah. I think at times you can have reconciliation as a result of forgiveness, but reconciliation isn't a prerequisite of forgiveness. They don't have to go together. Yeah. But at times, yes, you may be able to reconcile because you have forgiven, but I think reconciliation does depend on both parties, whereas forgiveness doesn't depend on both parties. The only two parties that forgiveness... the only two parties involved in forgiveness are you and God, and the other one would be, and in relation to reconciliation, that would be you and the person. So they are different, but it can be included, but they are different.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't feel like reconciliation is a must with the person.
It isn't, especially if it's an abuser, which sort of answers the next question, because we have to wrap it up now, in the sense of, in terms of abuse, there doesn't actually always have to be reconciliation at all. If someone's done something wrong and is therefore untrustworthy and a potential future threat, then reconciliation probably should not happen, because that wouldn't be displaying wisdom.
And I guess that's just the importance of distinguishing between forgiveness and reconciliation.
Yeah.
I think people think that reconciliation is part of forgiveness, which is not what we're actually saying. We're saying that, we're releasing it into God's judgment, into His hands. And that's it. So, the desire to meet somebody and confront them and face them to be like, that's confirmation that you've forgiven. That's not confirmation that you've forgiven.
No, not at all. So I think those are the things that we need to remember, actually, that there's a distinction between forgiveness and reconciliation, and there's also a distinction between actually feeling healed in terms of inner healing and forgiveness. They're two different things. It's just that they might exist in relation to the same situation. So again, yes, they may exist in relation to the same situation, but the two can actually be quite independent of each other. That's my view.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's all the questions. But if there are more questions, please feel free to comment. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure to view all the other episodes that we've actually put on Bring It to the Table channel.
Yeah.
That's it from me, Jermaine Bernard. Anything else?
No, just to say that, we're on social media, so you can contact us via Facebook, our Bring It to the Table Facebook page, our Bring It to the Table Instagram page, and of course we've got this YouTube channel. So by all means, continue to comment, continue to ask questions, because we can actually continue the conversation over the next couple of weeks.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, bless you. Bye.